The main event, Curtis Blaydes versus Chris Daukaus. Curtis Blaydes finally got that knockout he's been wanting. Finally got that highlight reel knockout, you know? And it's obvious that he wanted that. You know, the reason I say that is because he said it, I don't know how many times. He said it after the fight. He said it in an interview with Ariel Helwani a couple days ago saying, hey, man, I really wanted that knockout. I want to start exciting the people. And he said it in the post-fight interview. He wanted to get that finish. So it was clear that Curtis Blaydes wanted to end that fight in spectacular fashion. The reason why is because a lot of people give him flack for saying that he doesn't end fights in spectacular fashion. He does quite the opposite. He just wrestles you to death. But here's the thing. I don't know if that's necessarily true, guys. Is he doing what like a Colby Covington would do, like an Askar Askarov would do even in the fight against Cara France? Like, is he just holding you down and doing nothing with it? You know, I don't think so. If you look at what he did against Alistair Overeem, just mauled him with the forearms. You know, look what he did against JDS, knocked him out spectacularly there too. Like, the guy is exciting. He does finish people. Like, his ground and pound, the guy's got vicious fucking ground and pound because he's a very big, very powerful guy and a very good wrestler. So he's good at manipulating weight on the ground, good with leveraging weight. And once he gets on top of you on the ground, it's pretty much over. But he's not just going to hold you there. Again, he's going to do damage. He's a very good guy. And if you look at his record, which I believe only has 3 losses, right? 15-3. So the guy's lost to Francis Ngannou, the best heavyweight on the planet right now, far and away. Maybe not far and away, but the best heavyweight on the planet right now. Lost to the guy twice. Okay, I mean, no shame in that. And then he lost to Derek Lewis. That's it. Other than that, he's never lost. He's never lost to any other heavyweight contender, never lost to anyone else. He's been in the top 5 for a couple years now. It's clear that he wanted the interim title fight, just like it's clear that he wanted that highlight reel knockout, because he was saying it after the fight. Like, I want to get that interim title fight. Put me in there with Cyril Gane. There was a funny moment where, the guy who was interviewing him, I think it was Bisping, said, hey, look, there's Stipe Miocic in the crowd. Anything you want to say to him? And he starts talking to Stipe, almost not calling him out, but like a friendly kind of way to say, let's fight, whatever. And Stipe, I don't know if he just purposely didn't hear him or maybe just really didn't hear him. Stipe is just taking pictures of fans, getting the hell out of Dodge, basically looking like he wants to beat traffic. That's exactly what it looked like. So again, though, like with that microphone, it's pretty fucking loud in the arena. Like, you could hear it pretty well. If you've ever been to an MMA event, like in those post-fight interviews, the mics are intended for the audience to hear you pretty loudly, I might add. So did Stipe hear him? He probably just wasn't paying attention to what was being said. He probably thought Bisping was just interviewing Curtis Blaydes, asking him how was the fight, this, that, and the other. So again, I saw a couple people say, oh, maybe Stipe was just looking to avoid him. He said, fuck that, you're not on my level kind of deal. But I don't think that was the case at all. You know, I'm sure they respect each other, and Stipe probably just didn't hear him. It's just funny to speculate. Anyway, off that soliloquy, Curtis Blaydes versus Curtis Daukaus, right? Chris Daukaus, sorry about that. Now, we know Chris Daukaus looked like he was going to have the striking advantage in that fight, on the stand-up, obviously, but Curtis Blaydes actually did look better, looked fresher, looked a bit quicker standing up in the stand-up, which was a pleasant surprise for me. And we know that Curtis Blaydes said a couple days ago in an interview, he said that, once I felt this guy's power, because he hit me pretty flush with an overhand right, he said once I felt his power, it was pretty much nothing. Like, he was even urging that the guy move down to 205 because his power was kind of irrelevant to him. But, yeah, that's how Curtis Blaydes felt about it. And he said, once I felt his power, he said whatever. So I guess he didn't really fear his power and was able to walk through punches enough to set something up. And the way he set up that knockout was beautiful. It was. So if you see a guy now who could start knocking people out like that, is the guy a great striker? No. But there's guys who aren't great strikers that you could see have some pop in their hand, right? Curtis Blaydes got some pop in his hand. Now, granted, he's a heavyweight, right? And you say, oh, any heavyweight has pop, right? But did Chris Daukaus have pop in his hands? No. So, for example, that just shows you not every heavyweight has power like that. Curtis Blaydes has reasonable power within the heavyweight division. He could put you out if he lands flush. We've seen him do it to JDS, now Daukaus. So we've even seen him do it on the ground against, again, like a guy like Alistair Overeem. So he's beat his fair share of legends, Is it crazy to say, and I don't talk about the fight much because it did end fairly quickly, right? He just finished him there in the first round, and he didn't even go for a takedown, which was fairly shocking to me. He did finish him in the first round, right? Because it did feel like a quick fight. Okay, no, it went into the... second round. So Curtis Blaydes finished him in the second round. My apologies. But it just felt like a quick, dominant victory for Curtis Blaydes. You know, total strikes, he outlanded him 30-13. And significant strikes, 30-13. So you look at Curtis Blaydes now, you look at the state of the heavyweight division, the rankings. He's a guy who's always going to be there, right? We just said he wants to fight for the interim title, right? We just brought that up. Is that something that I envision him doing? I don't know, because when you look at Curtis Blaydes, now he didn't move anywhere in the heavyweight division. So we look at now the updated rankings at heavyweight, Curtis Blaydes has not moved. It sort of tells you what Dana thinks. It sort of tells you what the matchmakers think. You got to do more. Show me more. Now, granted, top 4, if you're number 4 in the division, it's not crazy for you to fight for a title or for an interim title at the very least, now that Francis is injured, right? Anyone in the top 5 can fight for a title. It's not out of the ordinary, you know? So Curtis Blaydes to be number 4 now, if he's called upon to fight for an interim title, it wouldn't be crazy. But I think a guy like Tai Tuivasa probably deserves it more than him at this point, because he's just been showing it more. You know, he's on like a 4 or 5 fight win streak at this point, and he's showing it. He's finishing guys. He's doing what Curtis Blaydes wants to do. He's that. He's almost the opposite of Curtis, with the exception of the couple fights where he finished those guys, right, that we just mentioned. But Tai is pretty much the opposite. Tai is not engaging in wrestling, and he just wants to have a slugfest in the middle of the octagon. You know, Curtis Blaydes, if he does strike, he wants to set up his shots. You know, he's not going to go in there and slug it out with you. He wants to wrestle, and he wants to strike, but at his own pace. He's not going to make it an absolute war, dogfight. And that's what Tai wants to do. But that also draws rating. That draws excitement from fans. That draws intrigue. So I think that's something that's going to benefit him. And again, now we got Stipe Miocic at number 2. Tai again, let's harp back to something that Curtis Blaydes also said. The third thing he said if Stipe fights for the title, if they want to get him in there next, he said, I can't fault him. He said he deserves it. I can't even be mad about that. Something along those lines, he said. And I agree with that. You know, no offense to him. Stipe Miocic, if you're talking about an interim title or something along those lines, again, with Francis being out, Stipe's in the game, man, more than anyone, really. Because Cyril Gane just lost to the champion. You know, you just lost pretty clear to the champion. It was a good fight, but you clearly lost, right? It wasn't like a crazy close fight. So you don't really deserve a title shot next. Again, Cyril will be there, but he's got to get a win or 2 back. Stipe is pretty much the only one. Now, you can say, oh, yeah, but Stipe is the same fucking thing as Cyril, but worse because he got knocked out by Francis. True, but Stipe is also the greatest heavyweight of all time. Stipe holds multiple records in the heavyweight division. Does Cyril Gane? Cyril Gane's a newcomer. You know, he still has to prove himself more. And then we got Derek Lewis, and, you know, we'll disqualify that quick. Love Derek Lewis, but if he's not at the end of the road right now in his career, which is what it looks like, and then it looks like he's a guy who is at the very least slowing down. You know, it doesn't look like he's a top 3, 4 guy anymore. And, it makes you wonder, because didn't Derek Lewis retire a few years ago or something like that, and then he came out of retirement? So even when things like that happen, it makes you question the guy's motor. Now, I know he loves money, and I'm not saying he's like a fucking gold digger or whatever the case. I'm not saying he's in it for the money. But, again, his words, not mine. He said, I'm fucking fighting for money. Like, that's why people love Derek Lewis. He's so blunt, and that's what he said. You know, I'm sure he loves the game to some extent. I'm sure he actually has fun doing it, contrary to what he might say. But he is in it for the money, right? And if the passion's not there anymore and you're getting knocked out and you already have a decent life outside the octagon, he looks like he's made some smart moves financially. You've listened to interviews he's had and whatnot, and it looks like he's bought properties. You know, he's a fairly well-known name out there in Houston, so I'm sure he's making waves for himself. So he maybe doesn't even need fighting anymore. So, again, I think we could eliminate him. And then we have a guy who should probably be ranked ahead of Derek Lewis and Tom Aspinall at number 6. Yeah, Derek Lewis should not be number 5 and Tom Aspinall 6. Tom Aspinall should be 5. Derek Lewis should be 6. You know, Tom's just been doing a lot better lately than Derek. You know, it's also a momentum thing. Even though he hasn't faced Derek and Derek's just been higher than him the whole time, I don't think it should work that way necessarily. I thought Tom Aspinall was going to be in the top 5 already. Kind of disappointing. But he also said he's not ready for a title fight quite yet. But is an interim title is not really a title fight per se. It's almost like a number 1 contender fight. Because, again, Tom Aspinall did say that he's almost not ready for a title fight, which is shocking. He's like, I could see myself fighting for a title in like 2024. And when I saw those comments, it took me by surprise. I was like, 2024. Like, you could almost fight for the title next. And like, you're saying this now in 2022. What do you mean 2024? That kind of, it doesn't worry me, but it makes me question where he thinks he's at right now, where he thinks he can compete at the top tier of that division. So again, you look at heavyweight, those are really all the relevant guys right now. Everyone else is just ranked too low or has had a setback. So if you look at it that way, it's not crazy for Curtis Blaydes to fight for an interim title. You know, his name's in the hat, you know. Cyril Gane could be fighting for an interim title. Stipe, Ty, Curtis Blaydes, and Tom Aspinall. It's not crazy to think any one of those 5 guys could be fighting for a title. It's just not crazy to think that for an interim title, you know? If I have to pinpoint 2 that I think are the most deserving out of that division, I'm going to have to say I think it's Stipe Miocic and Tai Tuivasa. That's just what I think. You know, Tom Aspinall says he's not ready yet. You know, that might just disqualify you there. Derek Lewis, obviously not. Curtis Blaydes, maybe, but I don't think so. He still has to get a couple wins under his belt, I think. And the mere fact that he hasn't moved in the UFC rankings, again, shows you what the UFC thinks about that win. It didn't move him up, so didn't really add much stock to his name, really. Tai Tuivasa, yes, he can definitely. If Ty or Aspinall were thrown into that, the interim title fight that I'd make is Stipe versus Tuivasa, rather. So the interim title fight that I would make is Stipe versus Tuivasa. If they want to insert Cyril Gane or Tom Aspinall, mix and match any of those guys, I wouldn't mind. Even Razor Blaydes to an extent. But for Razor Blaydes to be an interim title fight, somebody's going to have to have been injured or another fight booked, some circumstance like that. Because if they just straight up pick Curtis Blaydes out of those 5 guys to fight for an interim title, you know, if they pick 2 of those guys and one of them is Curtis Blaydes, that just wouldn't make any sense to me. Again, no disrespect, but I think he's still a fight or 2 away because he has had his setbacks. And again, it's a tough fight to sell because you're 0-2 to the champion. So is Dana or the matchmakers out there, are they going to want to make you the interim champion? What if you become the interim champion? Like, and you're the interim champion now, but everyone knows you were 0-2 against Ngannou. Is that a fight that's so exciting to build up? You know, is it a fight that people really want to see? Right now, it's not. If he can knock out a few more people, if he can knock out Cyril, Aspinall, or whatever, wrestle fuck them to death, whatever the case may be, if he could do that, hey, man, then we might be talking about him saying like a Colby Covington. Like, hey, this guy could challenge a champion. Who gives a fuck that he lost the first 2 times? So it's interesting.